Hey, what's up, you guys? If you're new to the channel, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Marek, and most people call me Bear or Bearski. That's the idea for this channel, blah blah blah. Anywho, what I'm about to talk about is just kind of relevant to what I'm doing. Notice there's a lot of conversation going around about the purpose, the reason for whatever we're doing out here as fish keepers and so forth. And to be honest, you don't know. You start here, you end up there. That's just how it is. The best advice I could give you, either adapt and move forward, or you can be stubborn, stuck in your ways, and extinct or die out. So either way, your 15 minutes of fame could be, or it's up to you. So anyway, as far as the involvement, yeah, I noticed there's a lot of also controversy about what is, the etiquette or whatever. Just think of it this way. If you are right, if your content's true, it's not harming anybody, if anything, it's beneficial to others, awareness, that type of thing, you got no worries. Truth will always set you free. But if you're playing off a controversy, worst off, you're doing stuff that you can but really shouldn't, like the old saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Short-lived, in my opinion. Ed is short-lived. People will catch on to the bullshit, pardon me, but yeah, and figure you out. You're nothing but a show. And you're, writing or whatever, enjoying what you're doing, and it's someone else's expense. So I encourage you to just kind of follow, logic foremost, and then couple it with some of that stuff you like to do. So logic, mindfulness first and foremost, and then fun. What's up, you guys? Well, today's gonna be a bit different. We're going to talk about these guys. Yep, they're also part of our lives. I've noticed that most, if not all, fish keepers have more than just fish. Cats, it's like a given. Dogs, absolutely, and of course other things, but other animals, other creatures that we choose to hold captive. Some are domesticated, obviously, which means they're kind of, dependent on us and whatnot. Dogs are probably the best example, because cat, as we all know, can and will survive, for extended time out without our help or without depending on us for anything. Dog, however, he can scavenge for 2-3 days, maybe a week, and then he'll join a pack of others where he can find more resources and some kind of protection or whatever, some support. That's just how they're pack animals. Us as people, in my opinion, we have the obligation to understand what they are first and foremost as animals before we begin to, attempt at keeping or raising or whatever you want to call it. Because some folks take it to an extreme, names, whatnot, even trust funds. So I'm talking about the basics, the decision of, keeping an animal that requires basic and foremost needs prior to it having been selected as some type of kind of animal, species or whatever, and then even down the ladder to a breed or a name. So think of it that way first and foremost. Are you capable of taking care of the very basic, primary, primal needs of the animal you choose to help or keep or take care of, or whatever you want to do? Love and become family and part of you and all that good stuff. Feelings. So before the feelings, logic and knowledge, research, and then you'll find out if you're even capable of having any more, that you can give more to this animal. So where I'm headed is, where I'm trying to, steer you guys or whatever this conversation is basically to remind you that, once again, knowledge is power. In that reference, I've had dogs 30 some years. When I had dogs in Europe, we had no choice but to cook and provide, or whatever, make our own food for the dogs, because they were not available in stores like here. The convenience of kibble, sure, I've succumbed to it too. I moved to US, didn't have dogs right away, I was just busy, school and whatever, but once I had a dog, which I waited for quite a long time, another and a second German Shepherd working class, and I gave him the best I could find in the pet store, and performance formula and all that, and just simply got comfortable with the idea that this is a balanced diet. I'm giving my dog all he needs, even though I trained him. I trained him in multi-languages, and he was just a well-rounded part of our pack, And what happened was the kibble, the food source, was what slowly, unequivocally destroyed his health, led into fistula and some complications. Nevertheless, his life only lasted about 13 years. And I know that most dogs, well, maintained, groomed, whatever, taken care of, animals can live up to 15 years without major issues. So we've lost Demon, and then we lost his companion, are also the other German Shepherd, who was succumbed to some mental illness, and we found out there were loads of some elements, some heavy elements, heavy metals in his blood present. So very troubling news. Anywho, do your research, and I did too. Took me a while, and I decided to get another dog, two actually. That's a whole nother story. Once again, do your research. Anyway, I decided to go this time with a different route, different feeding. Circle back to my native ways of preparing food for my dogs myself, relying simply on the ingredients I know and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I did the same thing, only this time I really dug into the knowledge, the information that I can gather from, other people who are doing it, online, whatever. And I tell you what, here's the secret. The real secret is not that there's raw and all the top-notch breeders and trainers and everyone's doing it, including your racing greyhounds and all that stuff, because it's the best that you could provide for your animal, raw feed. And excuse me, when I found out, I was stunned that this was some sort of secret, but it isn't. The secret really is that kibble is poison. Not just substandard, but it's actual poison. Just think of it this way. If you love your dog or your animal so much, some of us love them as much as our own kids, the real, human kids. And you would do anything, but yet you feed them poison, and you somehow refuse to acknowledge it, Yeah, you were misinformed, I was too, but now we know. This stuff is garbage. This stuff is 30% fillers of stuff that's completely undigestible by anybody, let alone an animal that's carnivorous. 30% of crude fiber, which is sawdust. Yeah, sawdust. Go examine the poop after you kibble-eating dog, what is it called? Deposits. And you can come back and see the same piece of poo week after week after week. I've documented it. I got pictures. Trust me, it's all coming. So just you don't think I'm just rambling, but that poop will be there. So slightly being affected by elements as rain, wind, whatever, snow even, and the stool it resembles a literally pile of sawdust. Whereas the poop from my raw-eating carnivorous is minuscule in mass. Literally probably a quarter, if not less, of the mass, and there's no odor, and it's gone in a couple of days. Someone else picks it up and eats it because it's still full of nutrients, believe it or not, calcium, whatever. Not sawdust. You get my point? What goes in must come out. That's your best way to examine things. Haven't you ever heard of a saying, I don't trust it until I touch it, feel it, look at it, and then pass it through my intestine? Maybe a joke, but believe me, that is the true way of really finding out what the food does or is supposed to do for you, for whoever. You know, so I hope you get my point. My point is, would you feed a protein bar to your kid every day for the rest of his life? Because you know he could probably live on it, he could sustain it. His health would be greatly diminished, and I bet his life expectancy would be greatly diminished as well. Just kind of like your dog. So, yeah, you would get incarcerated for whatever, locked up for child abuse, and dogs can't tell you that, you know, they're not doing well because you're feeding them sawdust when you're, you know, going spending all this money on kibble that your vet told you is full balanced diet, by the way. You know, this is what you got to stick with. And the regimen of 15 vaccines in the first year of the puppy's life, that's crazy shit. Is your puppy going to venture out into a jungle where he's going to be exposed to who knows what, with who knows where? I mean, seriously. 15 vaccines, that's where it all starts. Chronic illness. I'm not even going to get into it. Vaccines supporters or whatever, opposers, all I'm saying, moderation, a good start. Okay, anyway, so going back to raw and all that, very relevant what you hear from, you know, your fellow raw enthusiasts versus what you're going to hear from a lot of veterinary, institutions where you know things are still set the old ways. You know, they need clients. They need you to come back with a chronically ill animal, or there will not be a business. Think about it. But they forget that, you know, when you change something, you create new jobs. But forget about it. It's the same mentality, you know. It's that we're stuck on the same mentality. That's why we're still burning fossil fuels. Anyway, what I was trying to say is basically, you're gonna find opposition even from your basic, most trusted, you know, up to this point, obviously, sources that you relied on for the wealth and health of your pet, of your beloved companion. All I'm saying is, I did that. 4 vets later, one telling me I need to cut off Demons, my German Shepherd's tail off when he was fully grown, 10 years or whatever. I prolonged his life by simply doing whatever measures I could take. The one thing I didn't do is give him raw instead of off the best kibble I could find. Long story short, I did this time around with my pups, and I don't have to say anything. All I do is go out. People walk up to him, want to take pictures with him. They ask me, what kind of dog this is? I'm like, what do you mean, what kind of dog? This is average German Rottweiler. He just doesn't look average. He's super healthy. He's shiny. His teeth are pearly white. His attitude, everything. And, you know, I mean, yeah, that's part of the raising, the pack mentality. He knows he's part of something, so he can obviously be well-mannered and have the proper etiquette, exposure and association, a lot of socialization, you know, stuff like that, and reinforcement is what you have to do with any dog. But what I'm saying is the basic foundation of his nutrients, what leads to so much of beneficial health, also leads to very good temperament, well, you know, being, whatever, feeling well. Get it? So, imagine this. You spend $100 on the best kibble. The best kibble you can buy is about 1:5 ratio to any raw meat. Meaning 1 pound of raw meat is equal to 5 pounds of the best kibble, but it's not really equal in quality, only in about nutritional calorie, you know, all that stuff, equality. But the fact that the kibble is processed and where the food is sourced from and everything else, totally different ballpark. So you can't even compare it in pounds to each other. But if you were to, say we resort to the bare, you know, minimum comparison of pound to pound, dollar to dollar talk. Like I said, 1 pound of meat is 5 pounds of the best kibble. Average to shit kibble is about 10 pounds. So whoa, 10 pounds of meat is 100 pounds of kibble. Now go price that out. Your bag of best kibble is $100. Your bag of cheap kibble is $30. It's still about 50, 40 pounds, not 100 pounds. So you gotta get 2 of them just to match that 10 pounds of meat. You get my, I'm sure you'll get it. I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. What I'm saying is not only that you're getting better deal pound for pound, but you also, the amount of food that you have to feed is substantially less. So there's that. Your costs drive down of just spending on direct food. Costs on vets drive down because you got no vet bills. I got no vet bills. He's 2 years old. We've been to vet once where I gave the vet lecture and then he charged me $480 to hear me out. Anyway, long story short, health is top notch. No vet bills, no dental work, none of these, you know, things that you have to do as maintenance to your dog because your dog is already chronically ill from the moment you set him on kibble as a puppy. That's messed up, but that's just the turn of events for a life cycle of an animal that only supposed to live about a decade. What? We have German Shepherds in Poland that live 20 years. Yeah, they lost hearing, maybe even eyesight, but they can smell you and, you know, whatever. They knew, and they were still alive, 20 years plus. My friend just lost a dog. I think she was a mix of Pit Bull and Rottweiler, and yes, he fed her kibble. Hear me out though. His argument, oh, I fed her kibble 20 years, and look how long she lived to live. Can you imagine if you fed her raw? The dog would be 30 years old, still alive, beating records that you couldn't even heard of and imagine. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, oh my God, kibble is just, kibble is poison. Some dogs, some better genetically equipped dogs handle it better, just like we do, humans. Kids now are getting cancer. Adults, juveniles getting cancer, not just old people. So figure that out. What's cause and effect, you know? You have to use logic with everything. I'm sorry, but there's no surviving this unless we start using our noggins for something other than self-gratification, and, you know, let's not get into that. What I'm saying is stick with the facts, with science, with what biology and part of this, you know, environment is being about, you know, and same is for the animals. Maybe it seems like a little headache, like a hassle to go and shop for him now instead of picking up a bag of kibble, which you can easily, you know, scoop up, blah, blah, to go and prepare food and all that stuff. But really, you have to prepare it only once a month. You freeze it, which makes it perfectly safe, worry-free as far as parasite, bacteria, pathogen, virus, anything else, because freezing process kills it all off. You only, you know, use it take it out when you're about to feed, so it doesn't get stale or whatever. By the way, salmonella 10 times higher in kibble than it is in the raw chicken on your countertop. Interesting fact. Just like most people think that most germs are in the toilets, and they're not, because, you know, they're just not. The places got some germs, but there's other places that are way more germy, like knobs on doors. Go figure. Anywho, what I'm saying is, get the facts before you start going all emotional and disagreeing with whatever, or even have some kind of battle powwow later in the comment sections, how you've done this, you've done that, and they all lived. Believe me, my parents smoked in the car with me in it. I drove in a car with no seat belts in it. Yeah, I lived, but I'm not doing it with my kids. We thought it was okay, now we know it's not okay. It's fucking terrible. It's a bad idea. So, like I said, adapt, survive, or perish. And I think what's happening is that pretty soon we're all gonna figure it out that there's no other way. Can't feed a protein bar to your kid every day. You gotta get a full spectrum, full broad meat, whatever, veggies and all. Same for our dogs. And if you're not in it, don't have one. Simple as that. If you're not willing to do this, don't have one. Go to the park and greet some, have fun with some other dogs, someone else's dog who's doing what it takes. Same for kids. You're not ready to raise a kid, provide for them, school them, whatever it takes, don't have kids.